Good morning and welcome to the Church Office podcast. It's lovely to be back and into the new year, 2022. I can't believe it's happening. We've got Anna Wood from Liverpool, Cornerstone Collective on again. Anna, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good, thank you. Yeah, nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, all is well, thank you. Yeah, it's kind of the podcast today is about the kind of new year, how we approaching the new year. What are some of the things that we can think about and learn from each other just over this new year? It's been a bit of a strange time, isn't it? It's sort of, I found this new year to be totally different to previous New Years. I think I seem to have lacked the same kind of enthusiasm. Maybe there's possibly we've still got restrictions going on here in Wales, so we've still got mask wearing and social distancing. So things that you thought, oh, why are we still in this kind of season? And things seem to be changing. So the new year, I think, is a bit of a mixed bag for me. What about for you, Anna?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there was a bit of naivety perhaps in the new year of 2020, 2021. In that sort of, COVID was 2020, and move on to 2021, it'll be a better year. And it was a real mixed bag on lots of levels. So actually coming into 2022, I want to be full of hope and excitement about, starting a new year and setting off in a good, positive direction, but equally with a bit of hesitancy over actually what is it going to hold. That sort of naivety of last year perhaps has dwindled somewhat. And in England, we're definitely not as restricted as you guys in Wales, but even just for us coming in I think it was the 10th of December, we had mask mandates brought back in for churches. And that's ended today, which is exciting for us, but equally still brings with it an awful lot of questions in terms of how you handle that well, to bring everybody with you positively. So it continues to be a bit of a mixed view, but trying to enter it with positivity, but perhaps a bit more realism than perhaps last year.
It's true. I think we went away as a pastoral team on a retreat for 3 days, and these times are really rich and enjoyable. And it was so different because usually we're planning, we're thinking, we're budgeting, we're dreaming, all of those kind of things. And this year it was kind of like, well, we need to think about processes and structures, and there was loads of kind of review this year. What's the feeling amongst your team, sort of wider? How's everyone approaching the new year?
Yeah, we're doing well, I think. We are all really keen to push things forward and to sort of be in a position to see things, see some of the visions that we've had for our churches, to actually develop those and move those forward a bit more than perhaps we've been able to in the last 18 months or so. Where I'm based in the Liverpool church, because we've got a few churches that are linked to us, but Liverpool church, we've got a big old dilapidated building that we took on 18 months ago, and so that's a continuing project for us, and we're really excited about that, but keen to sort of see some movement and progress in that. And I think it's those tangible moments where you can say, oh, we've had this happen. So yesterday I had an email with confirming that we'd had some VAT refunded from some work that we've had done.
Nice.
And it's those sort of small things, like here's the encouragement, it might not be seen by everybody, but tangibly we now have this funding back, so we can plug it into something else and move things forward. So I think on that level, we're keen to look positively forward with what we're doing. And then the churches that we've got, which are operating across the collective, they've all got different projects and plans that they want to see happen this year. And one of the churches has got a new space, so they can now operate a kids' church on a Sunday, in their Sunday service, much more specifically for the children than they've been able to before, which is really exciting. They've been sourcing equipment for it. That's worked out really well. And I think all of us as a wider team are really keen to look for things which are going to be exciting and positive to push forward with, in the context of things still not being perhaps quite how we would like them to be, or how we would find them easier to be.
Yeah, no, that's good. I love your VAT return thing. I think one of the things that I've kind of just been chewing over this year, I think God's been just reminding me is that it's great to look back at past grace and see how God's been faithful to us over the last couple of years, particularly. But we see His grace at work, and that future grace I get and think, yeah, God's going to do what He's going to do, and His grace is going to be sufficient for all that He's got planned for us this year. But that kind of present thinking of present grace and being, having your eyes open and not just being in cruise control. That's been the kind of the challenge for me. Don't just go into this year with kind of cruise control, just thinking, yeah, we just do what we do, but actually enjoying the moment and the grace that's around us and happening. And the VAT thing just highlights that, isn't it? It's a small thing, small amount of money or whatever it is, kind of happening, but God's at work in that. And those little reminders of grace in the present is so important.
Oh, it's so important. I think that's important for us as a team in the churches to actually be able to identify that this is where we're at, and God is gracious with us in this context. But I think it's just so easy for us to sometimes forget that, or forget how to sit in that well. Like you say, you can look back at evidence of past grace. You can look forward to the grace that is promised to us.
Yes.
In whatever way that works out with God's plans, but to actually be content with the grace that He is providing to us right now is sometimes the hardest bit of all, I think. And I think that goes for sort of functioning as a church or as churches for us, but also functioning on a personal level as well. It's about having those two things sitting together really positively to actually ensure that we are first and foremost right where we should be with God before we do any of our normal day-to-day jobs.
Yeah, absolutely right. And we launched Christians Against Poverty project in the last 18 months in COVID, and it was never what everyone intended, but it was lovely this last couple of months to see. We've had 4 or 5 of the clients come to church. We've seen one client get saved, and you just think, oh, God's at work here. There's just lovely grace, and it wouldn't be how you planned it, but in the time God's doing something. And I guess one of the things that, as listeners, if you're listening to this, look out and see the evidences of God's grace at work around you, and kind of recognize them, call them out, and kind of enjoy them, isn't it? And
and share them with each other, because it's so encouraging to hear from other people that you're close to or within your church context. I think that's helpful, because in your own personal context you might not feel that you can recognize the grace in what you're doing right now, but actually if someone else in your church or your team has got that to share with you, then be encouraged by that, because you're part of that too. It's about us collectively working together for God's mission. So I think that joint encouragement is really important too.
Great. So Anna, give us a couple of things that this new year, as you think about your own life, what are you doing differently? What are you kind of investing in personally to kind of prepare yourself for this year and get the most out of this year?
It's a really good question. We had a time as a staff team about 2 weeks ago, so relatively new into the new year. But we had similar questions that we asked of each other, and personal reflection, but also then to share some of that with each other. And my personal context is I've come off the back of quite a tumultuous year last year, and so personally had a few different challenges that meant that I really needed to make sure I was fully grounded in God's grace, God's strength, God's protection. And prayer wise, that was where I was at. But in terms of study and reading and things like that, I found that very difficult because of the challenges I was facing. So my intention this year is to sort of build on that, really, to actually build on the tangible graces that we've just mentioned, that I could feel them at the time. I can look back at them and know they were there. To build on that prayer foundation that was so incredibly important throughout that time, but also then to add on to that better rhythms for me as and personally in terms of reading and studying God's word. So that's my sort of main goal at the moment, really, is to build that back in more fully for my personal growth. Nothing to do with my job, but on a personal level, to make sure that I'm in the best place possible with that. So that's starting well, but it's all about the sustainability, running the good race sort of thing. So that's my prayer really for this year, is that would be something that God would just gently and firmly encourage me to get that rhythm in place productively. And for that, my hope and prayer for that is that would then sort of build out into the wider context I'm in. So in terms of my family context, with my children, with my husband, and then also my context in terms of how I work, who I work with, volunteers wise, staff team wise. Because when we're right in our prayer life and we're right in God's word, and we're in the best place possible with that, it can only ever be a positive ripple effect on how we function with other people and those around us. So that's my kind of New Year's resolution. Sounds a bit cheesy, but that's what I do.
No, I think you're right, isn't it? Because as we better lead ourselves, we better lead the teams that we're involved in. And I've certainly been challenged, this coming into this new year, thinking, how am I leading, and that personal thing, and just as the team went through that exercise of what do you continue, what do you stop, what do you start, I've kind of done that myself, and thinking, right, what do I need to continue in my life? What are the things that are important, kind of mission, where do the kids need support, where do the family need support, all that kind of stuff. And then what are some of the things that I actually just need to stop, that actually you can recognize in this season that actually maybe we need to kind of pull that, and where can you start? What new things do you want to get involved in this year? And one of the things that I've got involved in is something called Man v Fat. And kind of I've lost a little bit of weight already, for those who watch the podcast and the video. And it's been absolutely brilliant, and it's been something that I'm definitely going to continue into the new year, just an opportunity to reach out with my faith to unbelievers who have got no interest in God, no background of church, and to go into some of the hardest parts of the city and just play football, and with the kind of desire to lose weight and reach out. So that's one thing that I've been excited about and enjoying this year. So find things that you can really get involved in this year, something that's going to kind of a spark, a bit of fun, a bit of joy. I know you were saying you're getting back to the gym, and for some people that's just life, going to the gym. Getting on the running machine just sounds horrendous to me. But you like the gym.
I do classes because I need someone to tell me what to do. I'm not a gym machine person, but keeping fit for me is really important. And that was one of the challenges of last year for me, was that I wasn't able to do that for a time. So I'm really enjoying being back and building back up to my sort of previous fitness and strength and what have you. And I do believe that then helps generally in terms of your mindset. If you're feeling fitter and healthier, then that can definitely have a positive effect on how you function in all areas of life as well. So that's definitely helpful.
No, so important, isn't it? All these different things, getting the right kind of balance and level, these different things. I know it's so easy for me just to kind of get sucked into the church and all that needs, but actually to have something outside, with the desire.
I think having parameters for that is helpful, actually. I think one of the challenges in my context is that we don't necessarily have proper office space at the moment with the building project we've got going on. So, I'm often working from home at the kitchen table, which I've learned, and I've had to learn, and I've had to be strict with myself as much as I can, but there comes a point in the day where I have to close it down, pack it all away, and not have it available, because otherwise that email comes in and I'll just quickly reply, I'll just deal with it now because I don't have to deal with it tomorrow then. And actually that's not great in terms of just having good routines and rhythms professionally. It's good to have a cut-off point where you can actually switch off and be present in whatever other context you're in, whether that be family or anything else. So I think that's really important as well, and just having those set parameters, as you know, with flexibility where needed, but some good rhythms about when you're working and when you're not working. And similarly, just in terms of just functioning with other people in teams, whether they be volunteers or other staff, you know, make sure it's communicated well with them, I think, in terms of what the expectation is of when you're going to be available, when you're maybe not going to be available. And I think that can be really healthy and helpful for everybody involved. So yeah, that's a lesson that I'm still going to have to keep learning, but I will keep doing that.
No, it's true, isn't it? And these kind of personal leadership things and boundaries, all these things that we're talking about, you do have to kind of go back and revisit them, don't you? And re-strengthen them in different places and go, okay, what do I need to be different? And how do I be different? And getting others to come on board and say, right, would you help me to be, you know, to protect this aspect of, you know, work, you know, family life or whatever that might be. These are key things. One of the other things that's just really struck me over this new year, just thinking, it's this whole thing about just being faithful. You know, so I want to reflect on my personal leadership. I want to enjoy the grace of God in the moment, but also just that call to go, you know, where can I continue to be faithful? And you know, Paul kind of references, doesn't he, in scripture, just the whole kind of farming analogy. And I've been kind of chewing that over this year and thinking, I was watching Clarkson's Farm. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's a bit of fun. It's just, you know, just the joy, and it just kind of brings back, you know, that we can, you know, we can plow and we can plant and we can fertilize, we can cultivate, we can harvest, but actually God's the one who's going to do the work. God's the one who causes things to grow. We can't make things grow. We can't control the weather to do that. And I just a reminder again, just thinking, I was watching that thinking, do you know what? Yeah, you know, we you know, what am I called to do, and how can I do that faithfully? And then have eyes to see God's actually going to make things grow and cause things to grow. And so I've kind of just been reminding myself of that, actually. So big eyes to see, and actually just you know, keep doing what I'm doing, you know, strengthened by the grace of God, working you know, faithfully as best I can. And that's kind of been a bit of a reminder this year. Clarkson Farm.
That's a really helpful reminder. Clarkson's Farming, no,
it did make me laugh.
Really helpful reminder.
It's interesting, isn't it? Anything else for the new year that you're thinking about?
Not really anything. Well, so just one other aspect for us is that we've got so some of the guys here in Cornerstone Collective, we've been involved with Church Planting Network Acts 29 for quite a few years now, and a few of us are going to be more involved in just how that functions over the next few months in the UK. So that's quite exciting. So just adjusting how we function to allow that to be part of our rhythms and routines each week. And so alongside, you know, the day-to-day gospel-centered churches that we're trying to cultivate and to grow and encourage people in and welcome people into, we're also able to look with that wider vision of thinking, okay, we're able to help with encouraging churches to be supported and planted across the UK in some small way this year. So that's quite exciting as well. So, but again, that brings with it new challenges of how do we set that up to function well. So so I'm hoping that as we reflect on this year later this year, we'll be able to maybe think through some of the things we've talked about this morning and see how they've benefited us in making sure that we stay grounded in what we're doing under God's vision, really. So
fab. That's great. Well, Anna, thank you so much for your time and thoughts and how we can learn from each other, just of how we approach the new year. And if you're listening to the podcast and you've got some suggestions or recommendations, then please write in, and we'd love to be able to kind of put them into a blog or put them together. How are you approaching the new year? What are some of the things that you have done this year in 2022 as you go into to all that God's got planned this year. So thank you so much for your time, Anna. It's lovely to catch up with you and lovely to hear about Liverpool and what you guys are doing as well in Acts 29. So excited about all that stuff. It's grand. If you're listening to the podcast and you're involved in UCAN, I just want to do a little short promo for UCAN. They've got a conference coming up in June called the Cutting Edge Conference, and it's between the 27th of June and 29th. It's a 3-day course, an opportunity to kind of gather church administrators together to be equipped and encouraged and to network. So this event is happening. So I wanted just to take a moment on the podcast just to let you know about that. And if it's something that you're interested, if you're based in the UK, then this might be something for you to get involved in. I've signed up to go. Anna, I'll fill you in on the details. Maybe we'll get you to go.
Forward to them.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. Everyone that's spoken to me about this conference says it's great. So I've not been on it, and I think it could be interesting to get along. So the information of that is on our website and be on social media and various other things. Great, Anna. Thank you for your time, and we'll call it a day there.
Thank you for having me.
We'll look forward to seeing you at some point again in the new year on the podcast. It'd be great.
Thank you very much.
Send our love to everyone there, Steve and all the gang there. We're grateful to God for all you guys are doing.
Wonderful, and right back at you guys down there in Newport. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.